Mary had a little lamb.
The fourth, we believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Higher wages and government spending don't push up consumer prices. In many cases, mega corporations raise prices to increase their profits. They can do this because they face such little competition. Worried about sky-high airfares and lousy service? That's largely because airlines have merged from 12 carriers in 1980 to only 4 today. Concerned about drug prices? Between 1995 and 2015, 60 leading pharmaceutical companies merged to only 10. Upset about food costs? 4 large companies now control 85% of beef processing, 70% of the pork market, and 54% of poultry. Worried about grocery prices? Just 3 giants, Albertsons, Kroger, and Walmart, control 70% of the grocery sales in 167 cities.
Oh, my God.
Monopolies can raise prices and keep them high because there's not enough competition to charge lower prices and grab their consumers away. Right now, responsibility for fighting inflation lies with the Federal Reserve, which raises interest rates to slow the economy when prices rise. But this causes more unemployment, keeps wages low, and harms many working people. An important way to avoid inflation would be to fight it at the source. Break up monopolies using antitrust laws so that a handful of private companies can't artificially raise prices.
Duh! And that's the little story they don't want you to know. They don't want to tell it. They don't want you to understand it. They don't want you to see it. They want you to say, Kamala Harris is a communist. Why is Kamala Harris a communist?
As Attorney General in California, I went after companies that illegally increased prices, including wholesalers that inflated the price of prescription medication, and companies that conspired with competitors to keep prices of electronics high. I won more than $1 billion for consumers.
Oh, that's why.
Yep. So believe me, as president, I will go after the bad actors.
I do believe her. I think she will go after the bad actors. And the bad actors are people that have entirely too much of the market and nobody else is allowed in. I mean, if you think about the near monopoly power of beef, okay, of cattle, right? 85% controlled by one company. Pork. Poultry, 75% of all chicken. I mean, this is ridiculous. And, you know, during the pandemic, there was no chicken. Remember how there was like no groceries on the shelf, like none? And then all of a sudden the marketplace opened up. We were free to, roam around the place. We were free to, okay, we had to wear masks and all that, but we were free to go and buy. And there was nothing on the shelves, nothing. That's a broken supply chain, okay? That's because Donald Trump froze when it came to COVID. He didn't know what he was doing. He had no idea how to fix it or manage it or anything. So he just, punted, okay? And this is the result, broken supply chains. Well, the supply chains aren't broken anymore. They're not broken. If it wasn't for the Inflation Reduction Act, we wouldn't have seen inflation come down as much as it did. But it's still too high when it comes to groceries. And that's not core inflation. You don't include groceries in core inflation numbers, okay? But the near monopoly power of just 4 companies controlling 80% of almost everything that we buy that looks like, it was living at one time. I mean, a lot of people are vegetarians. They don't eat anything that had a mother. I understand. But that's not me. But the idea that there's only 4 mega companies and there's only 3 mega grocery stores makes it nice and tight and easy for them to sit and collude. When the profit margins are, above 10% and the cost to deliver is below 10%, but they're charging you 20% more, 50% more to bake a loaf of bread. That's gouging. Now, you know what gouging is. Instinctively, you know what gouging is. You know that if you live in California, and you know that Kamala Harris was your attorney general, and you know when she stood there and said that when she was attorney general, she fought gouging, you know exactly what she was talking about. During the wildfires, okay, when in 2015 specifically, she was very made aware by the people, in California who were affected by the wildfires, primarily the firefighters, that they were being gouged for things like water. And she went after these companies, and she actually, was able to use an emergency law that kicks into place in places that have natural weather disasters, like here. Here we have hurricanes. There in California, you have wildfires. Some people have earthquakes, right? And you have emergency legislation. Actually, it's law. You have an emergency law, a statute. In most of these places, tornadoes, Joplin, Missouri, you have it too, where if you've experienced some sort of disaster and people are taking advantage of that and saying supply and demand, that's gouging. That's gouging. If they're charging you $5 for a bottle of water after a hurricane, or they're charging you $10 for a loaf of bread or a potato after a tornado, or they're charging you, $15 for, gasoline after a wildfire. She's your girl. She's who you want, because she goes after people under statutes that already exist to prevent price gouging. Now, what the Republicans are telling you when they talk about communism and they're talking about price controls. Okay, that is a whole different animal. A price control says you can only charge, let's say it's this mug, okay? You can only charge between $5 and $9 for this mug. That's the entire scope of what you're allowed to charge for this. That's controlling the price. She's not doing that. She's saying that if your cost to make this mug is $6, and you're charging, 50% more, and you control the entire marketplace of mugs, okay, then you're price gouging. Also, they look at things like year over year, right? If your profits have gone sky high year over year, but your costs have remained steady or flat, and you're charging more and more and more, that's also price gouging. That's what's going on with the groceries, okay? We had a supply chain problem. The supply chain problem doesn't exist anymore. The supply chains are back intact and operational. And there's the cost for them to make whatever it is they make, whether it's the feed or it's, water or whatever it is, okay? The cost to make whatever it is they're making is down, but their prices are going up. That's price gouging. And the only way that can occur is if there's no competition in the marketplace. Think about it. If there was competition in the marketplace, if someone could come along and enter into the marketplace and compete with the people that are overcharging you and sell at a lower price, the people who were selling at the higher price would either go out of business or they'd have to lower their price. But you know what their insurance policy is? It's the grocery store monopoly. If you can't get into the grocery store, meaning you can't get shelf space in the grocery store for your, I'll say organic meat. Let's say that's the way you found, a way to shoehorn yourself into a marketplace. You said, well, theirs has antibiotics in it, or theirs have, hormones in it. Mine don't. And people want organic, Costs a little more because it costs us a little more to feed, better, whatever. Well, if you can't get through the meeting with Albertsons, if you can't get through the meeting with Kroger, if you can't get through the meeting with Walmart, and they're not agreeing to give you any shelf space, you're not in the market. Boom. Everything you just worked for, gone, shot to hell. All your investors or anybody who believed in you, disappointed. That's a monopoly, okay? Don't have time to listen to the live show? Want to hear more on your schedule? Go to RandiRhodes.com and buy a stinking podcast.